I'm sure you know, but early this morning, a container ship crashed into a bridge in Baltimore, causing it to collapse and causing an unknown number of deaths. Now, I don't want to get into the details because a lot of them are still unknown, but I do want to talk about MAGA and their inability to react to catastrophes like normal human beings without delving into conspiracy theories, without making racist and misogynistic implications about the people involved when we don't even have any of the facts yet. Example A is Matt Walsh's tweet saying, train derailments, supply chain crisis, planes falling out of the sky, ships crashing into bridges. I don't know the cause of this latest catastrophe, maybe you shouldn't speculate then, but the overall picture is quite bleak. Is it? Let's take a look at the overall picture and let's take a look at stats of train derailments from the 1970s. You can see a steep decrease. Everything is getting better and safer, and this chart cuts off in 2022, but we can only imagine that things continue to go on a downward trend. But MAGA doesn't care about statistics when they can rely on fear. Take a look at Newsmax's reaction to the catastrophe only a few hours after it happened. He implies that it was because of drug-addled workers.
I'm no expert on what's going on the seas, but all I would say is that if you talk to employers in America, they'll tell you that filling slots with employees who aren't drug-addled is a very huge problem. So I'm making no specific charges here because we don't know.
Right.
But anybody who flies in America can see that you're constantly waiting on a tarmac somewhere for some crew to show up. There's more maintenance problems than we've ever had, which I think are euphemisms for the problems that I've described. And
the only correct thing he said there is that he is no expert. It is so incredibly irresponsible to go on a massive platform like Newsmax and begin speculating about drug-addled workers only hours after a catastrophe when we have no new information. One of the most egregious examples of this racism was from a Twitter user that appears to be a man but goes by the name @BubbleBathGirl, who said shipping giant Maersk confirmed that the Dolly ship operated and managed by Synergy Marine Group, collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Maryland around 1:27 a.m. Synergy Marine Group promotes DEI in their company. Did anti-white business practices cause this disaster? Now, we don't know much about the catastrophe yet, but we can say with absolute certainty that this had nothing to do with race. But MAGA has become the party of identity politics, something they railed against for years, and now they're only able to analyze every situation through the lens of race. They have their own reverse critical race theory. And speaking of critical race theory, there's a new version of that they always talk about, which is called DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right-wingers have collectively gaslit themselves into thinking that workplaces and universities are finding people strictly based on race and not on qualifications. And they think this leads to white people being excluded. But this is not the case. This is not how DEI works at all. This thread from Michael Harriot breaks it down pretty well. He says, in response to Elon Musk's interview with Don Lemon, that Duke Medical School is 12.5% black, and U.S. News ranks it as the 5th best medical school in America. Nationwide, black students make up 10% of medical students. 25 years ago, Duke was ranked 6th and was 9% black. In 2005, the medical school was 15% black. So what did DEI change? Here's the thing. While most people think DEI policies have something to do with increasing minorities, most DEI policies focus on recruiting and retention. So instead of lowering their standards, you can increase diversity by inviting more diverse students to apply. Cost is the #1 reason why non-white students go to grad school, so offering scholarships and fellowships and recruiting at HBCUs increases the number of diverse applicants. We rarely think about the advantage white kids have by interviewing with someone who looks like them. He then provides this chart and says, when you focus on diversifying the applicant pool, you don't have to lower the standards. In fact, Duke Medical School's applicants' GPAs increased as the school became more diverse. And here's the thing, even though the percent of non-white students increased, the total number of white students also increased. Somehow they still found a way to get white kids in. It's almost like DEI isn't as exclusionary as right-wingers make it to be. So who exactly are these so-called DEI students taking spots from? Is it possible that expanding the competition resulted in white kids losing out to more qualified applicants? That is exactly how it works. I also have a clip of Nancy Mace immediately blaming the bridge collapse on President Biden, but first, Friend of the show, Wick TV, made a great point. He was being partially humorous, of course, but he said, reasons for bridge collapse according to X: the Jews, capitalism, DEI/wokeness, Russia did it, China did it, too many DoorDash drivers at once, women. Now, most of these are actual things that we saw on Twitter. People were blaming it on women, on diversity. Whatever happened to Occam's razor, where the simplest explanation is the most likely explanation? Because what's more likely? There was a simple technology failure on the shipping container, or that Jewish people and minorities are conspiring to ruin our infrastructure? Because the second one is what right-wingers immediately jump to, which tells us a lot about their mindset.
But why, after all these bills, after all the money, do we still have really old bridges and really old roads?
Because we're not spending it on roads and bridges.
Right.
Look at the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that was done a couple of years ago that the left hails as this massive success, but it was mostly Green New Deal. Actually, in that bill, $110 billion went to surface transportation, which is roads and bridges, and of that $110 billion, $70 billion went to public transportation, leaving only $40 billion for traditional roads and bridges, what you and I think about. And if you live along the coast or you live near water, you know that our bridges are rusting out. You know that we have many, many bridges that have to be replaced and upgraded. And you know it's probably about $1 billion a bridge every time. And so I look at South Carolina when the infrastructure bill came through, we really only got $1 billion more than we otherwise would have over a 5-year period. I can barely build a bridge in my district for $1 billion. That's just one district. So we have to be smarter. You look at the spending bill we did on Friday, all the waste that's in there, things that the government should not be paying for when it could be going to things that are the government's purpose, just like this.
Is she implying that if Democrats introduced a larger infrastructure bill that she would have voted for that? Because she voted against the first one. Actually, most Republicans did except for 19. And then she proceeded to boast about projects in her area, her district, that were funded by that project. Of course, Fox News has to relate everything back to the border. Watch them blaming this catastrophe on the border.
There is. Let me also get your take on what's going on in terms of world affairs. The White House has issued a statement on this, saying that there's no indication of a nefarious intent in the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. The ship involved in the collapse of the bridge is 948 feet long, called the Dolly, a Singaporean flagged container. But of course, you've been talking a lot about the potential for wrongdoing or potential for foul play given the wide open border. That is why you have been so adamant. Why has the Republicans had such a hard time securing this border? The president says he's not going to take his executive action. You know that.
And of course, Andrew Tate is desperate to ride that conspiracy theorist wave that has made Alex Jones so rich and then so poor. He tweeted out only 2 or 3 hours after the event, the ship was cyber-attacked. Lights go off and it deliberately steers towards the bridge supports. Foreign agents of the USA attack digital infrastructures. Nothing is safe. Black Swan event imminent. Let me stress that not a single word here he said was true. Even Twitter community notes corrected him and said this is pure speculation. There is no evidence of a cyber attack, and I'm pretty sure no evidence of a cyber attack will come out. My name is Adam Mockler. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, please subscribe, and have a great day.